Please forgive my writing, as sometimes my wording and punctuation could be better. I'll start off by explaining the area so you can get a good picture of where this occurred. We live in a small neighborhood. All of the surrounding streets dead end into a half-circle park. Behind the park are some woods and a railroad track. When we were younger, we all played in the front part of the woods. We never ventured too far back. This was our play area for years, never had an issue or scare. This area was pretty and well lit. Anyhow, one day my brother Jimmy, my best friend Sarah, and my brother's best friend Ian were all building a dam in the middle of this small creek that ran through the park and the woods. The boys decided that they were going to head back to Ian's house for some snacks. Sarah and I said we would stay and finish our camp area. As we were moving some rocks around, I got a very odd feeling that came over me. A strange feeling that we were being watched. I immediately think it's the boys trying to scare us and just continue with what we're doing. Sarah and I load up some big rocks and head back to the creek and put them down at the dam. I get that feeling again, and as I stand up, I see something straight in front of me about 30 feet away. I can't clearly make out what it is yet, but it's behind a bush, and I can see a pattern of red and blue. I know that's not what the boys had on at this point, so I'm trying to focus and figure out what it is. As I'm scanning the bush up and down, I realize it's a clown. I shit you not, my heart started pounding immediately. The clown and my eyes lock. He is wearing a blue and red hat with a reverse pattern red-blue jumpsuit. I grab Sarah's shirt and immediately pull her upright, and she notices the man right away. He's smiling with a full face of makeup, and he has a huge knife. We both say nothing and start running as fast as our legs can take us. He begins to follow. We can hear twigs snapping and ground crunching, but we're booking it. We run through the front of the woods and through the side of the park and up her dead-end street. Ian and Jimmy are 2 houses up from the end of the street and see us running and screaming about what's happening. We both run past, screaming about a clown, and they start laughing. We're still running and screaming for our lives and finally make it to the middle of the street where Sarah's dad, Danny, is now running out the front door because he hears us screaming. We meet Danny right at the beginning of the neighbor's house, and we're trying to explain what we had seen. He said, "Girls, stop it now, this is ridiculous, what are you talking about?" We try to catch our breaths. By this time, Jimmy and Ian have caught up to us. We're crying and pointing and telling Danny again that we have seen a clown with a knife. Jimmy and Ian are laughing, and Danny is asking if they played a prank on us. About this time, a yellow Pinto type of car from the dead end of the park pulls right up next to the sidewalk of the yard we're in. Sure enough, plain as day, it's the damn clown. No hat this time, but the knife in hand and telling us to come here. Danny, himself being scared, is shoving us all into the house now. The car drives off down the street. We get inside and Danny calls the police. We had to give statements, and the police patrolled the neighborhood and park for the next few weeks. We were never allowed to go into the park again, and a few months after that, our city started to clear out the woods, cut down many trees, and made a walking area that you could see through all the way to the train tracks. My friend and I used to talk about this many times up until her death. No one would believe us had they not seen it as well. It was just so terrifying. The only reason everyone got to see him is because whoever it was had to go down the end of the dead-end street to leave the neighborhood. Either way, this man was not afraid of us, nor the small group of people that gathered from our screaming. He was very bravely stopped right in front of us, as her father tried to comfort us and calm us down, all the while flashing his knife. We're lucky to be alive, I feel. Had it just been one of us left in the woods, which sometimes occurred, I don't think there would have been a group of 4 of us any longer. Sarah's dad stopped drinking that day, and we all have a fear of clowns now. Let me start this off by saying it's not my tale. Believe whatever you want, but I know my dad wouldn't make this up. This is a story my dad has told and retold several times throughout the years. It's as creepy now as it was the first time I heard it, so here it goes. It was the early 1970s in Des Plaines, Illinois. Back then it was not uncommon to hitchhike. My dad and my uncle, his younger brother, enjoyed doing this as they were quite the adventurers. They were both pretty young, in their early teens. They had just gone fishing, when they made their way to a nearby coffee shop parking lot in search of a ride to get close to home. A middle-aged man stopped to pick them up. There was nothing really striking about him, he just looked like the typical guy. So they got into the car with him. My dad sat in the passenger seat while my uncle sat in the middle back seat. Everything was fine until the driver reached his arm towards the back of the car and put his hand on my uncle's knee. My dad's creepometer sounded right away, and as soon as they came to a stoplight, my dad got out of the car, took his brother by the arm, and got the hell out of there. Fast forward a few years. It's 1978, and my dad catches a glimpse of a familiar face in the Chicago newspaper. It's the man who had picked him up a few years back. The article states that this man was arrested after police found 33 teenaged males buried in various parts of his home, including the crawl space. This sick man would find teenage boys wherever he could to rape, torture, and kill them. His name was John Wayne Gacy. Needless to say, I'm happy my dad reacted as quickly as he did. My dad and uncle were at the right age to be one of his victims. It's scary to think what could have happened, and I now wouldn't be here today. So Gacy, even though you're dead now, I'm so thankful you and my dad never got to really meet. Way back in 2016, when the whole killer clown epidemic was huge, I was walking through the woods at around 10 p.m. alone, in order to get to a party/gathering that was happening in a secluded part of the forest. It was almost pitch black and I could barely see in front of me besides the flash on my phone, and everything seemed normal as I walked to the party. I got to a long stretch of woods with no defined path, but it was the quickest way to the party, so I took it. As I got around midway through, I heard something to my left. I turned and saw a shadowy figure sat on a fallen log. I was understandably unnerved, but I couldn't make out if it was just shadows from the moonlight or if it was an actual person. I made the mistake of shining my phone light directly at it, and I was instantly terrified. Sat there, alone in the middle of the woods, was a largish man, dressed as a clown with full face paint and sporting the creepiest smile imaginable. I tried to call 5 different people as I was passing him, and then I heard him get up behind me. I instantly started sprinting towards the end of the long stretch onto a path which had barbed wire fence down the side of it. During the sprint, I was pretending to be on the phone with one of my friends, and I could hear him running after me, but there was no chance in hell that I would be turning around to see if I was right. When I got to the path, I jumped over the fence as fast as I could and sliced my hands open as I did. I then turned around and kept running backwards as I saw him. The clown stood there, by the fence, just staring at me and smiling. I didn't stop running until I got to the party, and I was scared for a very long time after this. You gotta bear in mind that there were so many rumors of people being killed by people dressed as clowns at the time, and while I never know if the man had evil intentions or was just trying to scare me, it was extremely strange and scary to live through. So in conclusion, killer clown man from the woods, let's not meet. The story takes place in the summer of 2023. Me, male 17, and my friend female 16 were hanging out at her house, and we fell on a subject that was passionate for us: urban exploring. And as we were talking about said subject, she told me that there was an abandoned factory 30 minutes away from her house. 2 seconds is what it took for us to both pack our backpacks, full of cigarettes, food, and water. We then started walking. We took about 5-minute breaks from time to time and continued our path. We finally arrived, and we were in love with the creepiness and absence of life this place had. Let me introduce you to the 4 buildings. It'll help you understand the story. First building, locked. No more information, probably somewhere to stock metal or wood. Second building, a big factory. It was the biggest building on the 4. There's 3 floors, a basement, a working space, and an eating place at the highest floor. Third building, a structure made of wood that contained a bunch of machines, etc. And finally, the 4th building, a small gas station that had keys from other rooms. There was 2 floors, but we didn't go to the second floor for a reason later on in the story. So we enter the factory, the second building. At first, we were getting shivers, but as time passed, we got more and more comfortable with the place we were in. Not gonna lie, the alcohol helped with that. Then comes the moment. We had to do it. We were so curious. We stood in front of the door and opened it. There we were, in the basement. As we advanced into the room, we arrived at a small office. There was a fresh cup of coffee. We didn't think much of it at first. Maybe some more people like us came here. We didn't have much time to sit there and make theories before we heard something. The honk of a clown horn. We looked at each other and laughed nervously. We thought one of us had stepped on a toy or any other thing. But again, a clown horn sounded right behind us, before we heard a cynical and traumatizing laugh. We ran to the door and left the building as fast as we could. We then stood there, outside, scared. At this point, of course, we didn't believe what was happening, so we laughed it off and took another sip of our beers. We decided to go back. Yes, I know, stupid idea. But don't worry, we didn't stay there even 5 minutes before we saw a hand open the same basement door. And that was it. We ran back home. I never ran so fast in my entire life. There is one small detail that I think would make you realize just how bad it could have really gone. About an hour later, we were going to a restaurant in the area when we heard gunshots come from the exact same position that the factory was in. That night, we didn't sleep at all, and to this day, I never went back to that city.
These videos are intended to bring about awareness to the dark side of the world we live in. As a reality of life, violent crimes happen every day in our neighborhoods. Keep your loved ones safe, and remember to say I love you. If you liked the video, remember to like and subscribe. And remember, watch your back. Toodaloo.